So control flow is where things really start getting interesting. It's basically when your code starts to make decisions based on certain conditions. So kind of think of it as like those Last of Us games where you get like different outcomes based on certain decisions. It's just like that. So one of the main fundamentals of control flow are Boolean expressions. Now, a Boolean expression is a statement that can be either true or false. So kind of like I'm going to drink this beer. See, that was a true statement. Now, Boolean expressions are made using rational operators or logical operators. My girlfriend's here, guys. Lex, you can come inside. Relational operators, okay. So relational operators compare two values and returns true or false depending on the result. Now there's six main ones that you have to look out for. The double equal signs means equal to. The exclamation mark and equal sign means not equal to. And I'm pretty sure if you went through high school, you would know the rest of these ones. So we don't really gotta cover those. No.
Mr. Tipsy color.
Don't leave. I'll be good. I'll be good. Okay. Yeah. So let's go through examples of using relational operators. Our first one is going to be is 5 equal to 5. So let's go ahead and run that bad boy, and it gives us true. Now we can quickly go through the other ones. 6 is not equal to 7, so that's also going to give us true. Our third one, 10 is less than 5. That's false, so we're going to get a false outcome. And what's interesting is you can also use relational operators on variables to get an outcome. For example, we're setting a to 3 and b to 8. So if we were to test if a is equal to b, we would get a false outcome. So pretty. You distracted me. Speaking of variables, let's go to our next section of control flow, Boolean variables. So last time we talked about different types of variables that hold different data types, such as strings that hold text and numeric data types, which holds, floats and integers. But now we're on to Boolean variables, which it's a lot simpler. They just hold true or false. Now there's two ways to create a Boolean variable. So the first way is to assign it using a Boolean expression. So in this example, I'm going to create the variable is 5 equal to 5, and I'm going to assign it to the expression 5 equal to 5. Now this expression, as we went over earlier, is true. So now our Boolean variable is going to be set to true. So if we go ahead and test it out, ta-da, it's true. Now the second way is to assign directly. You don't gotta use an expression. You just be like, do I like beer as a variable? And we can set it to true. Now you need to be careful because you can easily change a Boolean variable into a string variable. If you put quotations around your true or false, that means your variable is no longer a Boolean variable. It's going to be a string variable. Cool. So now we covered Boolean expressions, Boolean variables. Now let's move on to conditional statements. These basically let your code take different paths depending on the value of your variables. And this is where we see the introduction of if and elif statements. Right now, we're just going to cover if because I want to go watch the US versus Spain soccer game. So the way I'm going to teach this is we're going to use an English sentence to explain my thinking, and then we're going to translate it into Python. So let's use the sentence, if I want to drink beer, then drink beer. I have not been drinking enough on. Okay, so let's turn this into a proper Python if statement. Basically, our end goal is to print out the phrase drink beer if my statement is true, or my statement being if I want to drink beer. Cool, now let's go through it step by step. The first part of the sentence checks, do I want to drink beer? And if you think about it, that's actually a Boolean expression because it can either be true or false. And if we have a Boolean expression, that means we can make it into a Boolean variable. So let's do that. I'm going to call it want beer, and we're going to set it to true. Okay, now let's add a little bit more to that. We're going to start our if statement with, if. So now we have if want beer is equal to true. That's our first part. And remember, two equal signs because it's a relational operator. We're basically checking if these two sides are equal, which we obviously know they are, but just play along. There's also a Python little shortcut. I'm not sure if it's in other languages, but for Python, you can just write if want beer. It does the exact same thing. So if the first statement in the code is, true, then we will need an action to execute. So let's put that in our code. She's weird, guys. Okay, so let's put that into our code. So our first part is checking if we want beer, and then if it's true, the code down here is what we're going to execute, the indented section, the body of the if statement, and that's print drink beer. So let's go ahead and run our code to see what happens. The Boolean variable was true. We do want to drink beer, so it's executed for us to drink beer. Good job. Let's go through some quick syntax reminders. Using a colon, your colon always has to be placed after your if statement and before the code that needs to be executed if it's true. And also, the body of your if statement always needs to be indented. But in the beginning of the video, I said that control flow was all about getting different outcomes based on different conditions. Yeah. So what if I'm not in the mood for beer, which never happens? All right, so let's cover up our previous if statement and let's move down to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set our Boolean variable to false. Want beer is going to be set to false. Now, if we give it the exact same if statement we used earlier, but the only difference is that the Boolean variable is set to false now, we are not going to get the text to drink beer. Fantastic. Let's close out with some other examples. Real quick, let's make a variable name, and we're going to set that to a string Larry. So name is a string variable. Now you can also use relational operators to compare strings. So for example, if name is equal to Larry, then execute the code print I can't stand you specifically. So since name is actually equal to Larry, we're going to get the code executed. Very nice. Now up to now, we've only been using the equal to relational operators. So let's see the example of a different one. For this example, we're going to use the less than or equal to. So I'm going to create the age variable and set it to 15. So this is a numeric variable. And we're going to ask if age is less than or equal to 18, then print the string, sorry, you can't enter this freaky website. Now, since our age is indeed less than or equal to 18, we're going to get the text, sorry, you can't enter this freaky website. So there you go. That is your introduction to control flow. We covered Boolean expressions, Boolean variables, and if statements. And in control flow part 2, we're going to cover Boolean operators and elif statements. So overall, I'm very disappointed in myself. I only drank one beer. I apologize. That won't happen again. Don't forget, I love you. Bye.